Yeah.
I mean,
Spider-Man was educational.
Spider-Man was a familiar retelling.
Spider-Man was spectacular.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fallingtower's Watch the First podcast, the podcast in which we watch the first episode of a series so that you don't have to. Today, you may have guessed it, we are doing Marvel's Spider-Man. Which one? There's so many. It's like 2017. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're doing the
There are so
2017 reboot of Spider-Man. All month long, we are doing cartoon reboots. That shows from like the 70s, 80s, 90s that have been rebooted today. And Spider-Man's been rebooted so many times.
Oh my gosh.
This
Spider-Man
is one of
Amazing
them.
Friends, Spectacular Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man.
The
There's so
Amazing
many
Spider-Man,
Yeah.
the Spidermans. That's like Jane and Joe Spiderman. Of course, everybody knows Dr. Muhammad Noor is here.
Hello, always a pleasure to be on Falling Towers. Watch the first of things.
We have a very special guest today. Actor and stuntman extraordinaire, Darnell Davis.
Yes, stuntman. Watch me fall over stuff. Definitely. Feeling old.
Welcome.
Happy to be here.
One of my best pals in the whole world ever. The first friend we made at Star Trek Las Vegas many, many years ago. Big Star Trek fan. Let's have some fun.
All right.
Because this is Spider-Man, not Star Trek.
We can talk about that too. Just kidding.
Everybody in the comments below, if you'd like us to review a show, especially a rebooted cartoon, in the comments below, just type in WTF in the show, like WTF Friends or WTF Smurfs, and then let us know parenthetically where we can watch it. And then, if you do that, we will watch it and review it. Maybe.
Maybe. If it's this month.
All right, where do we start, Muhammad?
We're in a predicament about what to do next. But in that regard, I think we should predict whether each of us liked it and how much.
Yes. By the way, everybody, my name is Ryan T. Husk. Forgot that part. I predict everybody in the live chat will be like, we don't care. Okay.
That's not true.
So this is my favorite part of the show that Muhammad just mentioned. We make predictions as to whether the other person liked it or not. Actually, you don't have to say or not after you say whether. The whether implies the or not, whether the person liked it. Dr. Noor, I predict you feel pretty positive on this because you're going to say that you enjoyed the show, but you also enjoyed the very scientific aspect of the show. It pushed a lot of science and the scientific method. Darnell, I predict that you also like the show. You're a Marvel guy. You like Marvel. And I predict that Spider-Man is one of your favorite Marvel characters. So I predict that you're pretty high on this as well. Muhammad, what are your predictions?
This is tough. So Ryan, I actually think you may have liked it, but barely, because I think you do like origin stories, and this definitely had an origin story. I think you know and appreciate Spider-Man, and yeah, I think overall like this is fine, and I know you appreciate science too, as you mentioned the scientific method aspects. But I still think that it's kind of a barely liked it, not far above that 5. Darnell, it's harder. I'll say that you liked it more moderately. As opposed to Ryan kind of barely liked it. I think you might be a little bit more like, it's okay. It's pretty good. So that's my prediction.
What do you think, Darnell? What are your predictions?
I think, Ryan, that you liked it just because it's Spider-Man. Who doesn't like Spider-Man? And I'm going to go with you again with the doctor because this was more sciencey than we usually see Spider-Man ever and he's supposed to be the smartest, second smartest or third smartest person in Marvel. We never see that. We got to see that this time. So this may give the Doctor a few notches up.
Ooh, that's a fun game. Top 5 smartest people in Marvel: Bruce Banner, Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic. You know, obviously
And
Spider-Man.
What's
Is there anybody
circle
else?
guy?
The Doctor I
Doctor
don't know
Strange,
if he's
yeah.
one of the smartest.
He's an MD. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a doctor, but you know, that's just a doctor.
Are there any other like
I've seen the
wicked
list.
genius?
I've
Oh,
seen the list.
Magneto maybe, or
Oh,
Professor
yeah.
X. Well, Professor X
Maybe
was never really
Professor X.
considered super smart. He was just
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah, I've seen the list, and I think you hit them all, and there's one more, and I'm sure somebody will be able to see. But yeah, I was going to say Mr. Fantastic. I think is considered the smartest.
Jean Grey would be smart.
The other ones, the Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, Peter Parker, are in the list underneath him. So.
All right, everybody, that was fun for me. So the next thing we're going to do, where are we going anyway, Mohammed?
Well, I'll tell people as they predict whether we liked it or not. I'll tell people what the show was even about.
Oh, right. So everybody, make your predictions right now in the live chat or in the comments below. Take your time. Do you think I liked this show? Do you think Mohammed liked it? Do you think Darnell liked it? And as Mohammed said, take your time. He's going to tell us all what this show is even about while you type away feverishly.
All right. In this familiar retelling of the Spider-Man origin story, Peter Parker is on a field trip to Oscorp, where he gets bitten by an escaped experimental spider. Almost instantly, he gets spidey senses, super strength, and the ability to climb walls. Peter narrates how he's using the scientific method to explore this as he learns to make webs, to swing on webs, etc. Peter also enrolls in a wrestling match and beats up a strong opponent, but lets a bad guy slip away who ends up murdering his Uncle Ben. Peter tells us that inspired him that he needs to be a hero rather than an entertainer.
What came first, Spider-Man or the rice? The Uncle Ben, right? I wonder who copied who. All right. So everybody finish up your predictions. We are now going to compare and contrast what we expected before we watched this episode with what we actually got. Mohammed likes to call it
the expectation. We talk about what we expect. We spend a little bit of time on that without giving away anything. And then getchen, what we actually got. The
so
punch
violent.
is important, by the way.
Yeah. So, Mohammed, before you watch this first episode of Spider-Man entitled Origins, okay, cool. What did you expect, if anything?
So I'd watched a lot of the previous Spider-Man cartoons. I had not watched this one before, but I'd watched Spectacular Spider-Man, which has an excellent theme song, by the way. I'd watched Ultimate Spider-Man. As a kid, I watched Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and I watched the original cartoon Spider-Man. So I'd seen a lot of Spider-Man out there, and I've generally enjoyed them. I mean, they usually have a pretty good plot. They usually have a good villain that he's going after, and a lot of funny like little quips here and there. So that was what I was expecting going in for this particular show.
Okay. Darnell, what did you expect before you watched this first episode, if anything?
I expected exactly the same. I had seen everything probably of Spider-Man, except I had not seen this one. Big fan of our friend John Semper's Spider-Man, and I'm not sure which one that was the one in the 90s that he directed and produced, and I'm a big fan of that. But this one, I was expecting, an origin story of Spider-Man. Not a fan of origin stories because I've seen them so many times, especially Spider-Man and Batman. So, but I was willing to put up with it to get through it and see how they did it and see what was going to happen. And we'll see if I liked it or not.
Interesting. The Spider-Man expert. So I was right about you that you do like Spider-Man.
I love Spider-Man.
So I'll tell you, let me see. I don't know what I really expected. I'm moderately familiar with Spider-Man. I remember there was a cartoon back in the day with a cool song that everybody knows, right? Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Oh, the old
right?
one, yeah.
Yeah.
That's 1966 right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
that everybody would like want to sing along to because it was cool. It was fun, you know. And
You should hear the Spectacular Spider-Man one. That one's cooler.
I saw the movie or the first movie with Tobey Maguire. And that's it as far as just
Really?
Spider-Man things that I've seen.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
I've seen
Wow.
Spider-Man in the Avengers, once or twice,
Mhm.
but I didn't even watch any of the other Spider-Man movies. Oh no, I think I saw possibly a second Spider-Man movie, like the one after with the Tobey Maguire, maybe like it was like a Green Goblin. Was that the first one or second one?
That was in the first one too.
Okay.
Well, it depends on which Green Goblin you mean.
It depends, yeah.
There was a Hobgoblin, maybe was the second one. Anyway,
that might have been the second Spider-Man movie, the second group of Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm not a big Spider-Man expert. I know that Spider-Man was Stan Lee's favorite superhero of all. But when Darnell asked, who doesn't love Spider-Man?
Oh, that's sad. He's
Really?
I don't dislike him. He just didn't do anything for
That's
me. Anyway,
surprising to me. That's
so,
really surprising.
Yeah, so I just expected it to be fun, though, honestly, because I'm like, hey, it's superhero, it's Marvel, that's cool. Should be a fun time. What about you, Muhammad? Because everybody loves Marvel stuff, or they better. What did you actually get upon viewing this?
Well, I didn't expect. I should have expected looking at the episode name. I didn't expect an origin story because the other cartoons don't start with an origin story. Those cartoons, they just start. They're just going. Spider-Man's there, and he's fighting bad guys, and all sorts of stuff's happening. Yeah, I was a little surprised. I'm like, wait, what? He's not Spider-Man yet? But we're watching this origin. What's happening here? So that kind of threw me off, honestly. I didn't love this one. I mean, probably of all the Spider-Man cartoons, I like this one probably the least. But I found myself, maybe it's just because I've seen the origin story so many times, or I know it so well. I was kind of like, yeah, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen through the whole thing here. So I found no surprises. I didn't find the story unusually good in its retelling or anything like that. I'm sorry to sound like such a downer here. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I found myself, just getting a little bored by the whole thing. So that was disappointing. I did see things that seemed like, now I couldn't tell if they were true yet, they seemed like little Easter eggs, like your little mentions of other movies or series or things like that. But it could just be coincidental for some of them too. So we can come back to some of those later. But those were things like, that, there's something for me to be interested in, as opposed to like, oh yeah, now he's going to fight the guy. Now the guy's going to get away. Now Uncle Ben's going to be dead. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry to sound like such a downer, but
the live
I have some
chat
comments about the scientific method piece. I did not love the scientific method piece, and I'll talk about that later.
Ooh, we will definitely dive into that. The live chat right now is shocked. War Dog Heim is telling us that his number is way off for you.
Yeah.
Glenn Iverson is being very sarcastic and quippy. This is good stuff. You guys are killing us right now. It's hilarious.
Glenn's allowed to think what he wants to think.
And Darnell Davis, what did you actually get upon viewing this first episode of Spider-Man?
So watching it was basically the Tobey Maguire movie. I mean, I was so shocked that it was almost the exact same thing, even down to the wrestler. So I'm watching, I was like, wow. And I listened, are they going to do a Macho Man imitator on it? And they had a growly kind of voice, wasn't actually Macho Man, but it was close enough to go, wow, they're going straight. I mean, it was almost the exact same thing. But then it gets to the end and I'm like, is Uncle Ben going to get killed in this thing? There was no mention of Uncle Ben. There was nothing going on. Yeah. And so that did leave me hanging a little bit. It's like, oh, are they doing something different? Or is that going to be next episode? But then they just wrapped it up in the first episode to where you hadn't seen Uncle Ben the entire episode, and then we feel sorry because he's dead. Maybe because this seems to be a little bit more geared toward children. So maybe they didn't want to go too deep into someone dying. But I didn't even think we were going to get the famous line out of it. I honestly didn't think we were going to get that famous line out of it. But that's almost one of the last lines he says, with great power, etc. So, but I thought back and I said, everyone needs to see it for the first time, one time. And so children, I've seen it for 60 years, so I know it by heart. There's a child out there, this is the first time they're seeing it. And for that child, this may be the greatest thing they've ever seen in their life. They've never heard, with great power comes great responsibility. They never knew that Uncle Ben, something was going to happen to him. So for them, I think it's probably wow. For those of us who were watching the 1966 cartoon, we're used to it. So, but nothing bad to say about it. So I enjoyed it. I did. I thought it did a good job of what it was doing.
Well, I'll tell y'all something. If this was possibly the greatest thing a child has ever seen, somebody is raising them wrong, because I'm more in the Muhammad camp, where overall there was nothing particularly bad about it, but there was nothing particularly good about it to me. And what it felt like to me about midway through is I realized something. This would be a great educational video. This would be a great thing that is marketed towards elementary schools. Like it could just be fully marketed that way. Educational Marvel featuring Spiderman, and it would, but it didn't seem like it's marketed that way. But what it felt like was a very cool and hip and fun educational video. And so we need to be told that that's what it is ahead of time. Otherwise, they're trying to make an educational video out of just a regular after-school cartoon or Saturday morning cartoon. So I felt like that was the big problem. If we're watching this show just on its own merits as a cartoon, then it's not very good to me. But anyway, so let's talk about that. So what I got basically was a show that should just be a cool teacher's educational show that they show in their classroom, Muhammad's like, I'm a cool teacher, I wouldn't show that crap. Yeah.
I mean,
you are a
cool
very
part,
cool professor.
I don't know about that part, but the other half, yeah. I mean, my issue with the scientific method piece, I mean, I appreciate the attempt. They were talking about, like, what are the steps of scientific method, and they said them so many times there. I mean, that part was good. What I didn't like is that those are all supposed to apply to one thing, but the way they described it made it sound like each one was something else. Like, well, I hypothesized about this, and I experimented on this other thing which is unrelated, and I predicted on this other thing which is unrelated. Like, no, that doesn't work.
See, he took
That's not the scientific process.
He took the steps, but was experimenting and hypothesizing about different things.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which then completely undermines it in terms of how you do it. Because the whole point of the scientific method is to address a question. Not each step of it addresses a question, and then you just use them arbitrarily. Like, oh, for this, we'll use hypothesis. Like, what? No, use all 5 for one question.
See, I just kind of threw that away as like the thing that the subject matter is himself. Do I have superpowers? So that's how I kind of just, explain that away. But you're right in that he was studying different aspects of himself, not just like, he's not just the only subject, but you need to hypothesize, do I have secret, special powers? And if that's what it is, all 5 of those need to be about, do I have it?
Exactly.
Not how good are they?
Come from the spider.
What can I do? How strong I am? Where do they come from? Those are all different avenues.
Yeah. I mean, if it's just to get kids to memorize the names of the steps, okay, I guess it's okay for that. But I mean, I don't know, you need a 20-minute cartoon for that. I mean, it's not that hard.
This is why Spider-Man was not my favorite character growing up. He was one of my favorite characters, but I said to myself as a child, there is no way that I could ever make spider webs. Therefore, I could not be Spider-Man, because the coolest thing about being Spider-Man is swinging. I'm not smart enough to make spider webs. Therefore, I'll be somebody who is a mutant or someone who has all-encompassing powers. So that's
Mutants
why
are great.
this is why when they did the Tobey Maguire, I was like, oh, that's the greatest thing in the world. He's got Spider-Man, he's got spider webs in his arms. That is great. So, and I think a lot of people felt that way. I really do. I really do think that that was a huge difference when they made that change. It upset a lot of people, but it makes a lot of sense to those of us who aren't as smart as you guys and can go through that that scientific process, because I would have been lost day one. There was, they would have been like, there's some guy crawling up my wall. He's obviously breaking in. Let's call the police. There was no swinging involved.
That would be the smart approach.
Yeah. Wait a minute. You're saying that there were some people upset with a change in something that they like? That doesn't sound like the internet fandom to me.
It wasn't even internet. I don't even know if we had the internet at that time. But yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. It's hard to believe that anybody would complain about anything that happened.
You did introduce one thing along those lines, Darnell, which I liked a lot, which is the idea that the webs dissolve after an hour. Because otherwise you wonder, like, if you're sitting in Spider-Man City, the webs are just going to be like dangling all over the place by a week or two in. There's like webs everywhere. But this idea that they dissolve and now, like, oh, that's different. But
does anything in science keep its integrity 100% until a certain amount of time, and then, or is there anything that doesn't have a gradual dissolution? Anything, or is, because I can't think of anything that actually,
it wouldn't necessarily have to be perfectly linear, but like from 100 to 0 is a little abrupt. Yeah,
that just doesn't sound like that's very scientifically sound.
No, but at least it's an explanation. It's not scientific. At least
right. I appreciate the explanation. It just kind of like broke down and just fell right off. He's like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. But I agree with you, Darnell, about the webs. But to take that a little further, I was like, wait a minute. Did they just spend 4 seconds explaining, oh, I'm just going to create these amazingly impossible to create webs and attach them to and they just went through it in a flash. I was like, wait, hang on a second. Did a teenager just say, I'm going to create a substance that gets stronger the more you pull it, which already sounds very difficult to my non-scientific brain. And then he's like, and I'm just going to like put reserves of it that don't show anywhere, just like huge buckets of it somewhere. And they just went right through the same way. They went right through Uncle Ben without any explanation. They didn't earn any of it. So
that was the thing. It was not earned. That's the key word right there. It was like, who is this guy? He just got killed. Oh, who was he?
I barely even noticed that Uncle Ben died. I was like, wait a minute. Who died? He could have prevented what? I had to like kind of backtrack and be like, what did I miss? That's the same way I felt about the webs. Wait, he just said, all I got to do is create this thing that nobody's ever created before. All right, done.
Yeah, you're right. It was very quick. Again, that's why I always thought it would be impossible for me. So as a child, I always thought that, and that's why people love the Tobey Maguire, and they're never gonna let that go. How that change is probably the most popular change out of all the things. Even Wolverine being too tall, people won't accept that as much as the Tobey Maguire.
I was a little annoyed by that too. I was like, wait a minute, Wolverine is supposed to be like this small, like short, stout, ripped, old, gruffy Canadian guy. And then in the movies, he was like tall and lean. I was like, this isn't our Wolverine. This is a mastodon.
When did this come out relative to Infinity War, the movie? I think this was after, right?
17. So
when did Infinity War come out?
I'd have to look it up. I'm not sure. That's probably around Infinity War, because when would
2018 was Infinity War.
Ah, darn. Okay, so it was a coincidence, because especially after he got bitten, he was like, I don't feel so good. I'm like, oh my God, that's the line from right before he vanished. But that wouldn't have been connected then.
Talk
Oh,
about
interesting.
loving Tom Holland's performance. That
Yeah.
when he says, "I don't want to go," you
Yeah.
really remind me of Doctor Who. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Just that
Yeah.
line. Oh man, was and Tom Holland is we all have fallen in love with Spider-Man again because and with having all three Spider-Men in one movie.
That was amazing. I
That
love
was
that.
amazing. That was
Well,
amazing. So
I don't remember
Spider-Man
that.
has
Yeah, it
been and
was one of the
always
most
probably
recent
will
ones.
be Marvel's favorite character. And this is why we just have to put up with the origin stories every now and then because they have to introduce them again. So,
Well, Darnell, I'm dying to know, who are your three favorite Marvel superheroes then?
um, three favorite. I'm a Captain America fan. I'm a Wolverine fan, and this is hard. I want to say Spider-Man, and Spider-Man probably would be up there, but then we're going to go through the list. I will sit up here and I'll start shouting people. Go, oh, wait a minute, I forgot him. And of
Yeah.
course, people do the four, the Mount Rushmore. So,
What's the
but
Mount?
those
Oh, I see. Like a
Mount Rushmore
theoretical thing.
of your favorite wrestlers, your favorite comic book characters, and then you throw in DC, and you got Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and then another person. So I'm
The Green
I'm
Lantern.
pretty standard in my answers.
This guy's anti-villain. He only likes the good guys.
No, I love Magneto, even though he's good. I like the fact that he's good guy and bad guy.
Mhm.
I love the Joker. I think the Joker is, without a doubt, Batman and Joker, the best told stories ever. Batman is my favorite. If you ask me who's my favorite out of everybody, it's Batman, and then so there's going to be the Joker that is his nemesis, his arch rival, his everything. And the best thing about them, neither one of them have powers, and I love that. I love that. So that's why I kind of like Captain America. He has powers, but not like everyone else. So that's why he gets on my list. He's kind of like a steroid kind of guy more than anything. So
Like Muhammad.
Not even close.
Okay.
So, but Spider-Man's on my list. He definitely is. I love Spider-Man and Mary Jane. And that's one thing. No Mary Jane. That was something I
There may
noticed.
have been some when they wrote this.
There was another young lady, and I don't know. I didn't recognize her. I didn't know if she was in the comics. I don't know. And I figured she was going to be whoever the new
Liz.
love.
Yeah, Liz Allen. I wrote that down too.
It was Liz Allen, and I don't. Is that the one that is the news reporter in the? No, that's
no. I forget her name, but I don't think it was Liz Allen.
School newspaper. I'm not sure if I know her or not. And if I thought about it, I might know her from Spider-Man books, but I don't know her. So I found that interesting. No Mary Jane or MJ or whatever her name would be.
Just reminds me of Lily Allen when Muhammad said that. Singer from England.
What was the name of the other Spider-Man love interest? It was in the third Tobey Maguire movie, but also in the first of this.
Gwen Stacy.
Yes, Gwen Stacy. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, it says Elizabeth Allen, known as Elizabeth Allen Osborne, is a fictional character appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics. The character was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I'm trying to see. It looks like she was around. Like, this looks very old.
Is she married to Harry? Is that what's going on? Did she marry Harry?
Maybe, because look at this. Looks like super old school. So that means she's been around for a while.
Yeah.
That looks like from the comics. I mean, from one of the cartoons, right?
Yeah,
there.
From way back in the day. Anyway, but it says Osborne. So Osborne means she's that. Wasn't it?
Harry Osborn is the best friend that becomes Green Goblin after his father dies. So.
Yeah. It's the second Green Goblin.
Right now, there's some 7-year-olds that are like, spoilers, Darnell. This is the first one I've ever seen. Okay. Did you guys have any favorite moments or funny moments that really stuck out to you?
I didn't have any funny moments written down at all. I mean,
It wasn't very. There weren't no quips or anything.
no.
Although that's just something that Spider-Man gets would be the next episode. He starts becoming funny next episode when he actually gets used to being Spider-Man. He was very much the nerd in this. He really
Yeah.
he was, annoying to everyone else. He was so nerdy, and which is kind of, I guess, was supposed to be funny, but he was that kid that you were like, dude, just chill for a minute.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about. So
Did you feel
you
like there was a lot of self-narration? I felt like there was a lot in this. Like, okay, yes, I see what you're doing. I
mhm.
don't know, did you guys feel that way too?
Yeah, he tells the whole story and barely anyone talks through the entire episode. I mean,
Besides him.
there were a few lines that Harry might have had, and a couple, I think his teacher had, and Liz.
Mr.
But
Smythe.
yeah, again, we didn't have an Uncle Ben saying his own line. The most famous line in all of comics, and Uncle Ben doesn't even get to say that. Doesn't get to die on screen. Doesn't his whole thing he didn't even get to do. So
Yeah, there was only and going along with that, there was like the guy that worked at the labs that was like, oh, there's just some robot spiders that escaped. Nothing you need to. Man, if something like that happened, they would get the kids out of there. They would say, hey,
the place
sorry,
would be on lockdown.
canceled.
Yeah.
Canceled. Field trip is canceled. Everybody go back. So sorry, or we'll let you know. And he also wouldn't tell the kids what's wrong. He would say, no, nothing to concern you about, or what. But he's just like, oh, well, actually, what happened was, let me tell you. That was a very peculiar moment there for me. But speaking of peculiar moments, let's end these peculiar moments and talk about Mr. Darnell Davis here, everybody's favorite Klingon from Star Trek VI. And right now people are like, I knew he looked familiar. That's right. He was a Klingon in Star Trek VI. So Darnell, let's just talk about your acting career a little bit. First and foremost, since you started acting many moons ago, if there were a young up-and-coming actor that said, hey, what's your advice? I want to be a big actor. I want to be good at my craft. I want to be happy. I know those are kind of different answers. I want to be happy. I want to be good at acting, and I want to be successful. Those are three different pieces of advice. But what kind of advice would you give to a young up-and-coming actor?
Things that I would change for me when I was young, because when you're young, you can do this. Don't worry anything about money. I was so worried about making a living doing anything that I passed on opportunities that I wish I hadn't passed on because, I got to go to work that day. I got to do this. When you're in your 20s, if you only eat ramen that day, if you only eat ramen that day, who cares?
I literally bought top ramen today at the store.
Yeah, when you're young like that, you do it because you have energy to do it. Now, I had to take some time off because I'm going through feeling old and I got old people problems, so I can't do that kind of stuff. I have to eat or it's over for me. So those are the things that I did. I was on the cruise that the doctor was on, and I was watching so many wonderful actors giving speeches, and one of them was a Shakespeare platform that I watched. And I've been doing this a long time, and I've done Shakespeare plays. I studied Shakespeare. I'm watching Armin give a speech, 2 hours, maybe not even that long. I'm sitting up there learning so much from him, just giving a speech on Shakespeare that you would think I would have heard a million times by now, but you're always learning. And I was just so happy that I was there for that. Now I didn't get a chance to talk to him afterwards, so I have so many questions that I want to talk to him about, so many things I want to talk to him about. And that's what it is. And that's for whatever you do. Whatever it is that you love to do, always learning whatever the age is, always looking for new information. And if you love what you do, if you're lucky enough to get to be able to do what you love to do, and that's one thing I've said on the show before. It's going to be hard times. My favorite line from The Godfather 2: "This is the business in which we have chosen. we choose to do this business, and we know it's hard going in. But if you chose to do it. Enjoy what you do, and so I'm very lucky that I get to do what I do and get to come on here and talk about Spider-Man with my friends, and I love that.
So you've had a very rich career too. Among your past roles, is there one that you're like, wow, if somebody were to watch just one thing with me in it, this is what I want them to see?
I don't know. I my plays. I've done different plays that I enjoy doing probably more because the television spots I do, I go in for a few lines, I say my lines, and I leave, and you don't get to do it as much. But when you get to do a play that you really did, we do some. I did Oberon and Midsummer Night's Dream. And just different plays that I've done that I really enjoy. I really enjoy those, and those are probably some of the performances I'd rather see. Which, of course, none of those are on tape, so you don't get to see those as much. But there's something about theater that that you just love that you can't explain until you do the theater. So,
you still do a lot of theater now?
I'm not doing as much theater now. Theater takes a lot of energy and
time,
a lot of time now. So now things have changed. I think I mentioned this last time I was on the show. You do a lot of auditions at home, which is great. So you get a lot of auditions. There's a lot of auditioning going on, but you're doing it at home, so it is a different experience. So yeah.
If someone were to ask you, let's say, for example, a wizard shows up and says, "Hello, Darnell. I've been watching your career with great interest, and I would like to give you the role of a lifetime. Whatever your nerdy heart desires. Do you want to be a Star Wars Jedi? Do you want to be a Starfleet officer in a new TV show about Star Trek? Do you want to be a Lord of the Rings elf or a wizard or goblin? Or do you want to be, a late night talk show host? What would
Spider-Man.
What would be the one? Yeah. Or Captain America.
So if I had the choice, it would be Batman first. Batman would be the first for any question you ask me. Darnell, what are you doing? Batman. Darnell, where are you going?
What are you thinking about? Batman.
That is always the answer. Besides that, if Samuel L. Jackson said, "You know what? I'm not doing Nick Fury anymore. I would love to play Nick Fury." Samuel L. Jackson, I think, is one of the most amazing people that you will ever watch perform. It would be very difficult filling any shoe that he had done, but I think, again, I think Nick Fury would be a great part to play. He doesn't have any powers. I like people with no powers. I really think that it's something positive about them, a little bit more human. So I think that would be fun to do something like that. So.
Wow.
Or Batman.
Or Batman. Probably Batman, though.
Be Green Arrow. He has no powers.
Green Arrow. He doesn't have powers. He's
Iron Man doesn't have any powers. He's just really smart. All right. Fun's over, everybody. Back to work. It is time for Muhammad's Karate Chop, which signals
the bottom line. Or as Ryan sometimes calls it, the terrible twos, but it's the bottom line. It's the bottom line. See, line on the bottom.
That's right, everybody. Muhammad is correct. It's called the terrible twos. It's the final two questions of the show, the two most important questions. Darnell's like, what about all the questions you asked me about? Those are also very important, but this is business. Question number one is, Dr. Muhammad Noor, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this first episode of Spider-Man?
So specifically for me, not for hypothetical, naive 7-year-old or something like that. Specifically for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give this about a 4. Honestly, I found myself a little bit bored. But again, I completely agree with everything Darnell said. I have seen the origin story, many, many, many times. And for somebody who's never seen it, they might be much more excited, like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't feel it was the best retelling of that story, but it was a retelling of the story aimed at a much younger audience. So that's why I'm not going lower than that. But honestly, I still found myself kind of bored. Like I didn't feel like I got to know any characters. I didn't really see any bad guys. I mean, aside from like the one like crook who killed Uncle Ben. But yeah, I mean, relative to the other Spider-Man cartoons, I found this much more wanting, at least from my perspective, than say Spectacular or Ultimate or any of the others.
You do look like you make a great team with Spider-Man. Like he's right behind you going pew, just like
He's giving me a hug.
He's going pew, and you're like
he's protecting me. I'll duck while he shoots the bad
guy. Darnell. So Muhammad gave it a 4. What about you? Scale of 1 to 10.
For Darnell, the old man sitting here watching it, it's probably a 5. For Darnell, the 7-year-old who may have seen Spider-Man someplace before but not quite sure how it works and just figuring it out, probably give it maybe an 8.
So did I hear a 5 in there? Because you are
Darnell right now is a 5. So.
Got it. Interesting, but it is true looking at it from 2 different lenses. Myself, similar to Darnell, you know, if I were maybe a kid or if I were, say, a teacher that wanted to show this as an educational video, or if I were an 8-year-old child that's like, great, I have to sit in class. What? The teacher's rolling in a TV? Yes. Oh, man. Then it would be like a 9. I'd be like, this is the best day of my life.
Spider-Man for class.
I don't even have to like pass notes to anybody. I could just watch and enjoy. Then, but I'm not that young physically. This is not a classroom. And I gave it a 4.5, which is just splitting the difference between Muhammad and Darnell for you math nerds out there. Who are right now being like, do you really need to be a math nerd to take a 0.5 off? Yes. Anyway, yeah, it was okay. It was kind of disappointing, kind of boring, kind of whatever, but it wasn't terrible. However, question number 2 is the most important question. We saved the most important for last. For the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Spider-Man entitled Origins. Points for not calling it pilot, by the way. But now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the industry, internet. Think about the industry. We're free to move about the internet. Muhammad, would you, of your own volition, watch the second episode?
You know, I'm vaguely curious because, like, since what I didn't love about this was that it was just an origin story. I'm vaguely curious, but no, I would not. But I am vaguely curious. I would probably just want to go on Google and see, like, do we actually meet like Dr. Octopus or something like that? The next one. I don't know. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But no.
What about you, Darnell? Would you watch the second episode of your own volition, mind you?
I'm vaguely curious as well. I always enjoy comic book things. I all the DC movies. I own all the animated DC movies. I love these things. Marvel, they don't do as good a job, and I think this falls into that category where I just, for me at this point, I wouldn't watch the next. I wouldn't continue watching it, unfortunately. But I think it's geared toward people that are much younger than me. So I give it that credit. I would recommend it for someone very young, especially those who aren't familiar with comics and might want to get interested in it. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would not watch the second episode. Not because I'm mad at it. I'm not mad. I'm just not interested. If somebody said, "Hey, do you want to watch the second episode of Spider-Man thing?" I'd be like, "Nah." And if they said, "Hey, I'm watching this second episode of Spider-Man, and I've got this delicious cheese plate here. Would you like to have a seat and join me?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you know, I'll have something on while I eat your cheese." But that's not part of the equation, to my knowledge. So, well, yeah. Anyway, so it's a no from me. It's not an angry no. It's a slightly disappointed no, though. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. But that's it, everybody. If you'd like us to review a show, in the comments below, type WTF and the show, and parenthetically tell us where we can find it, like Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, Tubi, whatever.
WTF Spectacular Spider-Man.
Paramount Plus. Especially if it's a rebooted cartoon. If you give us that, the whole month of March is rebooted cartoons. So if you give us a suggestion, we will watch it. Maybe.
We're not already full.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Can we predict the future? No way. Who knows? All right. So, and in the comments below, tell us what you think of this show, please. And please be sure you subscribe to this channel. Please be sure to give this video a like if you're listening in. Give it a 5-star rating and leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. That's about it. What I'm trying to say is this podcast was industry.
This podcast was a set of highly consistent viewpoints.
This podcast was marvelous.
Oh,
very well done.
Better than industry. Damn it. I'm going to figure out a place. I'm going to figure out a place where industry actually fits, and then it's going to work.
City industry.
So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And remember what Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg always likes to say.
Don't forget to be an organ donor, and don't forget to watch the first of things.
Freeze frame like your Spider-Man making his web. No, creating it in the lab.
Oh, creating it.